Hey guys and gals, Hare here from Drake Wing Game, and a 7 Mount Twitter the Gaming Drag. Today I'm coming back at you another Let's Play episode of Tennis Ace, Case Path. So yeah, let's go ahead and jump right back into it, shall we? Alarm chain, you are up, and let's go, girl. Alright. I can't really make out what they're saying when they're this far, but it seems like Keikun won the toss. Unsurprisingly, at least to some, he chooses to let Yuuya serve first. There are a few murmurs among the crowd, and I can even spot the Akita raising an eyebrow at his decision. But those of us who know him can only half-heartedly smile at it. Is that nasty habit of his again? Yeah, I really wish he'd stop doing that. I shake my head, unconsciously letting out a throaty chuckle. Having played against Keikun more times than anyone else, I'm more than familiar with that habit of his by now. If he hasn't played against someone much before, he'll let them serve so he can study their habits and come up with a counter-strategy to deal with them. And if he has played enough to have their mannerisms and tics memorized, he'll still let them serve first so he can immediately try to break their serve. Having your serve broken can be incredibly stressful, especially if it's the very first serve of the match. It sets the pace for the rest of the game and can throw someone majorly out of it. Keikun has a bit of a nasty streak on him considering how often he'll try to resort to mind games, but I also understand he's just trying to do whatever he can to win. The Hare and the Akita take their respective positions in the court. Yuuya pulls a ball out of his pocket, bouncing up and down a few times before finally looking up. As soon as the two lock eyes, I instinctively hold my breath. There's that brief moment where no one moves. They merely watch each other for several seconds of pure agony before the Akita finally gets into motion. He tosses the ball high in the air before swinging his racket hard to meet it. The impact echoes loudly as the ball darts to Keiken's side of the court. I can easily imagine a serve that fast catching most players by surprise, but maybe because he's practiced with me so much, Keikun doesn't hesitate for even a second. Keisuke accurately judges where the ball will land, dashing there without wasting a second step, managing to get to it just in time to slice it back cleanly to the other side. And so it begins. Keikun begins a strategy of making Yuuya run back and forth, mixing in different types of spin, angles, and tight placements to make him struggle. I blink several times, even rubbing my eyes to make sure I'm not imagining things. Instead of hanging back and letting Yuuya go wild, Keisuke seems to be moving to suppress him from the get-go, launching a meticulous offensive that gives the Akita no wiggle room to work with. It's quickly apparent just how effective it is, too. Whenever Yuuya gets used to the back-and-forth rhythm, Keisuke will hit the ball into the same spot twice in a row, forcing the Akita to double back to the place he just moved away from and wasting precious seconds. This time, Keikun uses the full length of the court, hitting the ball short after making Yuuya move far back with topspin shots. Before long, the cocky grin on Yuuya's face is replaced by a tight frown as he pants and groans from the effort of in between each shot. With someone like Yuuya, you really need to strike fast and hard. If you let the match drag on, he's going to start getting used to you, and his explosive growth will see him catching up before you know it. Of course I know that, and I know that Keisuke knows it too, but still, this is someone like him. Maybe because he's seen it happen once before, Keikun goes for a much more aggressive style than usual, staying on the offensive the whole time. He manages to successfully break Yuuya's first serve, but even that is enough to make the Hare relax. He continues to press his advantage, almost relentlessly so, to the point that I begin to feel sorry for the Akita. Is that really Hare? Jesus, I've never seen him have such a commanding lead on a match before.
I know, right? Even against lower-ranked opponents. That habit of his and watching him serving always makes things look uncomfortably close. What's going on here? Aniki, did you do this? Ooh, because Yuichi-san is a hyper-aggressive player and he's been Keisuke-san's training partner for months now. I get it. It makes sense.
I mean, I would love it if that were the case. God knows I did criticize Keisuke lots of time for that bad habit of his, but he never listened to me until now. I don't think him suddenly deciding to go on the offensive is my doing. This is all Keisuke right here. Huh, that's some really good judgment from Hare. Gotta say, I'm impressed.
Don't relax just yet. Look at Keiken's face. He's being unusually aggressive, but he's still watching the other guy closely.
He's waiting.
Waiting?
For Kokonose to catch up, I think. That was his experience with the last match, after all.
Oh.
Yeah, I think that's the case, too. As much as I hope Yuuya struggles to get used to this, reality isn't as nice. I know for a fact that he'll get used to this rhythm and will start improving to deal with it. But no matter how good you become at dealing with it, the fact of the matter is that it's a deeply uncomfortable way to play tennis. People like Yuuya and I like to rely on instinct, to move however feels comfortable and go with the flow. Against someone that is constantly doing everything to keep you from getting into that rhythm, it can feel excruciatingly uncomfortable. And Keikun is no doubt counting on that discomfort to psych Yuuya out. Game, Hare 5-2. I'm starting to feel a little silly having worried. He's destroying the guy.
Didn't you say something about this being a bad matchup for Keisuke-san because the other guy is international or whatever?
Intuitive, and yeah, Keikun definitely caught me by surprise with a sudden aggressive start, but don't be fooled. Yuuya is starting to catch up.
It looks super one-sided. Haven't you noticed how the rallies are getting longer and longer?
Saya-chan and Aki and I all nod in agreement with one another. The difference is very slight, but the tension in Yuuya's face is slowly but surely fading. With each rally, he's closing the gap a little bit at a time. The tide is still firmly in Keisuke's favor, but that's the dangerous part about playing against Yuuya. Speaking from experience, Yuuya tends to lag behind until all the pieces fall into place and something clicks, and all of a sudden he'll flip a switch and become a completely different player. Strategies that used to work will suddenly turn against you. Shots that he used to struggle against will suddenly get countered as if doing so was his specialty. The guy kills momentum.
That sounds exhausting. If it were me dealing with it, I think I'd be so flustered by that I wouldn't be able to recover.
That's exactly the problem. Keisuke's style relies on slowly chipping away at his opponent, lowering their confidence little by little until they can't come back from it anymore. It adds stress little by little until, building up momentum until it starts to feel insurmountable. Yuuya is the opposite. He'll suddenly flip your strategy on its head and shock from it so overwhelmingly that it adds to the stress. It's like comparing a steadily dripping faucet to a pressure washer. And despite the early aggression on Keisuke's part, as Yuuya gets more and more used to the pace of the game, Keisuke is slipping back into his usual more reactive strategy. After all, if he keeps attacking recklessly, he'll eventually be the one playing catch-up. Game in first set won by Hare, 6-3. He's struggling to break Yuuya's serve already. The second set is where things are going to start getting dangerous. Come on, Keikun, just keep it up! Just as I expected, that stupid Akita is somehow showing incredibly fast progress. The end of the first set was already more difficult than I anticipated, but from the very start of the second, it feels like playing against a completely different person. Oh, this is Keikun, okay. Game, Kokonose, 4-1. From the moment he stepped back into the court for the second set of the rest of the break, at the end of the rest break, the atmosphere around Kokonose had changed so much it gave me chills. It not only felt like his serve was much heavier than before, but the placement of his shots was much sharper. Whether by dumb luck or skill, it felt as if the ball was being pulled toward the nastiest spots for me by some kind of invisible gravitational field. Not only that, the spin on his ground strokes got so much nastier all of a sudden. Launching a surprise offensive at the start of the first set was absolutely the best decision possible. If I'm already struggling this much, I don't even want to think about what would happen if I'd given him more time to adapt early in the match. The results of the first set might have ended up completely different. 40-30. Damn it, I barely managed to protect my last service game, but now I'm facing a break point again. If he breaks me for a second time here, there's nothing I'll be able to do to catch up again during this set. With the score as it is right now, breaking my serve would leave him 5-1. As confident as I might be about my current skill level, I'm not cocky enough to say that I'd be able to break his serve right back and get us to 5-2. Odds are he'd take the second set. Hell, odds still are that he'll take the second set, but I'd rather he not break my serve twice if I can help it. No matter what I do, the end of the second set will define the pace and momentum for the final set. My current situation is already way less than favorable, and it is entirely my fault. Even though my rational mind kept telling me to rein my enthusiasm back in at the start of the second set, I was feeling so high from the confidence boost of winning the first set that I decided to bet on continuing my reckless offensive in an attempt to sweep the whole thing away before giving him the chance to mount a counterattack. Suffice to say, I might be in a much more comfortable situation right now if I'd been more patient. Yuichi, I think you might be rubbing off on me in ways I did not predict, and right now that's not exactly a good thing. After taking several seconds to stabilize myself and my psyche, I noticed the umpire looking at his watch. Knowing that I won't have too long before he gives me a time warning, I tossed the ball into the air. So far, I've had the most success with slippery slices. The extra sideways spin along with the low bounce has been putting pressure on Kokonose's knees. He seems to have a slightly higher center of gravity, so having to dip lower to strike the ball negatively affects the strength of his stroke. As predicted, my slices returned ever so slightly shallow, giving me ample opportunity to attack the ball. However, I can't avoid the feeling of frustration rising inside of me. Even this strategy that had been working so well is already showing signs of fatigue. I have to think of some kind of countermeasure before I get swallowed up in the Akita's overwhelming pace. My mind is completely blank right now. I can usually do very solid work even when I'm deprived of air. The feeling of my lungs burning is a surprisingly effective grounding mechanism. It helps me think even when my cognition is drowned by the growing threat of oxygen deprivation. But now, I have nothing. He's too solid. All of his fundamentals are too strong. There's no opening to exploit or weakness to pressure. Even his bad habits are being erased at a terrifyingly fast pace.
Every potential threat or avenue of attack I can find is quickly exhausted just as I manage to identify it. Although I managed to close the gap between our physical abilities somewhat since we last played, it only serves to make me more aware of how completely abnormal his ability to adapt is. Not only that, but the overly heavy balls are difficult to return steadily, so I've been having to lower the precision of my shots to avoid making a forced error, which only makes it easier for him to press even further. And since they also put a lot of pressure on my wrist with how heavy his attacks are, I'm starting to feel the discomfort mounting up. In a bit of a desperate effort, I shoot a wide-angled shot with as much power as I can muster without much concern for accuracy. As a result, I just barely managed to keep the ball inside the limits of the court.
Excuse me. Advantage Arushi Hare, 40 all.
Thank God. We're only in the second set and I'm already being pushed this hard. What am I supposed to do going forward? I can't keep relying on these kinds of desperate gambits to score. Odds are against me on that. The more I push the envelope, the more errors are bound to appear in my play. Yet I'm caught in the uncomfortable position of lacking any real choice in the matter. Despite my best efforts to maintain my usual style of play, I am well aware that I'm being steadily edged out, with each step I take in the ever-lengthening rallies feeling like slowly getting strangled. The lack of air depriving me of the crucial oxygen I need to maintain peak performance, both physical and mental. There comes a point where it goes past the threshold of what I'm used to dealing with and becomes far too much.
Game Arushi Hare, 5-3.
Thank God, I barely managed to keep this serve, too. Odds are that I'll keep this serve here and take the second set. And while this is vexing beyond belief, it is still the ideal outcome at this point. Had I let him break my serve here, I would not only have started the third and final set with the weight of losing the previous one by having my serve broken, but it would have also mean that Kokonose would be the one to start the set by serving. If that were to happen, he would quickly bulldoze me. Of that, I am more than certain. As Kokonose is grabbing the balls and stuffing them into his pockets to prepare for his serve game, I finally make up my mind about something. I'm not particularly proud of it, but I've determined that this is a necessary step for me to win at this point. Excuse me, I would like to ask for a medical timeout. I face the umpire, announcing myself as clearly and concisely as possible. The woman, a middle-aged brown-furred bink, stares at me in surprise, blinking a few times as if she were trying to make sure that she really heard me correctly. On the other hand, I noticed Kokonose stiffening up and dropping the ball that was in his hand when he heard my request. I injured my wrist during practice a few months ago, and I'm afraid the injury might be acting up again. I've been feeling a tugging sensation on it, like it's catching on something, as well as some sharp stabbing pains. Could I have it looked at, please? I put on my best pitiful face while making my request, all the while internally hating myself for it. It's not even like I'm completely lying. It's true that the pressure Kokonose-kun's heavy shots are placing on my wrist is causing it to get sore and slightly numb, but I am well aware that it's more fatigue than anything. Besides, the injury I suffered when playing against Yuuya healed months ago. I know for a fact that it's not acting up or anything of the sorts. But at the same time, not being able to properly feel my hand is dangerous no matter how you look at it. Please, take a seat so the doctor can assess you. Once he is done checking you out, we will take a 3-minute break. Thank you. I put on my politest smile while making sure not to look away, regardless of how much I want to. At least all those stupid lessons on negotiation, crisis management, and etiquette my family forced me through paid off for something. I'm more than competent enough at masking my feelings when it comes to this sort of thing. Even while I'm thinking that to myself, the idea alone is enough to send chills down my spine. I hate it. Thankfully, it doesn't take long for one of the venue's doctors to make their way to me. The man kneels down in front of me, asking for permission to examine my hand. He checks my wrists, rotating, squeezing, and feeling around it a few times to make sure there's no serious injury. I had half a mind to pretend to flinch so my bluff wouldn't be too obvious, but it turned out not to be necessary thanks to the soreness I had been feeling. I guess there was a bright side to how strong Kokonose's ground strokes are, after all. At least I don't have to pretend. It doesn't look to be anything serious, probably a sprain at most. I'll apply some cooling spray to help with the pain. But would you like me to give you a pressure dressing as well? That would be great, thank you. Compression bandages might slightly affect the flexibility of my wrist, but they do take a little while to apply. The more time I have to rest and think things through, the better. Besides, taking a break when Kokonose-kun was about to serve is bound to frustrate him, not to mention the chance of breaking his concentration. It's a little dirty, but right now I'll take whatever advantage I can get. Alright, y'all. I'm going to pause it right there. Thank y'all so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, ring that notification bell, and check out our Patreon if you can. It always helps. Before I go, I'm going to give a quick shout out to our lovely bronze tier patrons. Thank y'all for all you do for the channel. We greatly appreciate your support. Thank you for our silver tier patron, Kate Silvermoon. Thank you for going a bit above and beyond. It's greatly appreciated. Anyway, if y'all want to get your names in the credits, get access to all of our not safe for work contents as little as $5. Alrighty, I love you all, and I'll see you all in the next video. Bye-bye!